All right, today it is my absolute privilege to welcome my good friend, David Waggoner, to Open Mic of Waggonner Ball, based in New Orleans, but really a man of the world. And we've got lots of fun stuff to talk about today. So, David, thanks so much for coming. And let's talk a little bit about what you do.
I'm an architect, a naturalist a bit, as you become. We were Waggonner Ball Architects, and we became Waggonner Ball Architecture Environment near a decade ago, because the surrounding condition for the architecture and the integral condition of architecture, anyway, I kind of want to do a lot of things.
Right. Well, and over the course of the years that we've known each other, you've done a lot of things, and I've got to tag along and see it, and a lot of which has been really looking at the challenges, not just in Charleston, but around the world that we have with interfacing with water and living with water, right? And that's a big part of what we've spent time doing together and talking about, and me learning sort of your wares. So let's talk a little bit about first the Dutch dialogues. How did the Dutch dialogues come to be?
Well, too long a story for this short time, but it started in New Orleans after Katrina on a day not nearly as nice as this one. And what are you going to do about it? A lot of people were thinking about cities as community, cities as nexus, things like that. How do you bring a city back? City was depopulated, and I thought, well, after a while, seeing what was going on, participating, there's got to be something about safety, and there's got to be something about making more of water, not fending it out. The Corps was reconstructing the flood defense system, the perimeter defense system that had failed, and that ended up as about a $15-16 billion project.
That was a huge project.
Huge project, done quickly, without much consideration of the urban redevelopment question that is there for New Orleans. We did New Orleans 3 Dutch dialogues. Okay. After that, we finally got some money and did a water plan for New Orleans. After that, it was rebuilt by design in New York and Connecticut.
Right.
Soon after that, in Norfolk, we did a Dutch dialogues. We're having a 10-year reconvening of the Dutch Dialogues Virginia thing next week. And then 19, we came here, 18, 19.
Dutch Dialogues Charleston. You came here, and actually we went there too.
Yeah, went to the Netherlands too. The Netherlands is a good text to study. It's not a replicable example for our political situation.
Right.
But it's an aspiration. And without aspiration, without an idea of how to put it together and get more from it, I mean, the primary thing that New Orleans remains is a question of reinvestment. Charleston's at is an investment cycle that's great right now, feeding itself. But if that gets broken, that chain's harder to restore. Inertia can be your friend, or it can be your obstacle.
I mean, from my perspective, the Dutch Dialogues Charleston version was really the kickoff to us here taking a deep dive into water management, looking at the challenges that we've got in and around our city, and starting to think about long-term solutions and management options for the water that is clearly coming at us, right? I mean, putting together a water plan.
Yeah, the successive floods called Charleston's awareness to the reality of where
water everywhere, right?
It's strange. I come from a farming community, and I go back into a country life in California when I can, and weather is what farmers talk about every day. And somehow we get away from this primary condition of our being on this earth, and we live in the city, in our houses, and with our televisions. But we forget the influences around the climate, the weather, the increasing water levels, and all that. Charleston. And
we see it all over the place here in Charleston. And
Charleston, being a peninsula, is exposed everywhere, but that means it's valuable everywhere.
Right. So where are we? What's happening in Charleston right now with looking at water plans and where we're heading?
Well, I think you can tell me what's happening in Charleston right now better than I. I travel around. I'm so privileged to come here. My business partner for a long time is a Charlestonian, so this place is deep in me. I know I have family roots here. But you can't be a local everywhere. And, I think the local leadership is here. I think you guys have to push this ahead now before the terrible event. Worse than a landscape noise.
Right.
But I think that the opportunity is ahead of the event. And I think that's where you're trying to get with Dutch Dialogue Charleston, now the water plan, and then what are you going to do about the perimeter of the peninsula? But then there's a whole city question,
Right.
Because you got to have a tax base that supports all of this.
Yeah, and it comes down to, as you pointed out, sort of local leadership, having some vision, but taking in all the lessons that have been learned by you and others, not just here, but around the world. And we've really sort of tried to take the best practices and start incorporating them into short, medium, and long-term solutions on the peninsula and around the city of Charleston. And it's no small feat to do it. It's not a small vision that you have to have. You got to have a big vision, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, you do. And you have to have some wins that occur in somebody's human lifetime.
And that's the big thing, is getting the wins out there, right? Is actually getting something under your belt and do it and show that it works.
Which requires governance, government,
right,
administrative state, all those things that maybe Americans don't like to talk about, but they're necessary for us to do this public work, because you can talk about water at every scale. I think it's important to remember you're dealing at all scales. Some things you can do quickly, some things you do longer term. Many of the things you need to do are at large scale. They may occur in increments that are digestible, but it's going to require government. And so how do you make that government be intelligent about what it's spending money on and to get?
Well, I think it's a basic understanding of what the objectives are and prioritization, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that has been, I think, the biggest challenge, is prioritizing and really understanding where to focus your energies, where to focus your thought processes, and ultimately where to focus your money, right? And that's sort of the lesson I've learned coming along, and we can't stop. We got to keep moving.
Yeah, it's a question the Dutch embraced a long time ago, inventing the stock. How are we going to put our money into this to get more from it? That's the primary lesson of the Dutch. The other lesson, though, in the Netherlands is to let water be where it wants to be. It costs a lot of money to lift water. Pay attention to the landscape. Pay attention to the physics. Pay attention to nature, the natural level. The Dutch eradicated most of what we would call nature, in their process of building the Netherlands, and that's not right. I mean, Charleston's a mix of urbanity and natural conditions. So you really have to do both. I mean,
right.
If you can't do both, if you can't garden and build, you really don't have the city that you need, that people choose to live here for.
My saying that I often bring up when we talk about all this, when it rains and we have floods, particularly on the peninsula, but not just only on the peninsula, but particularly on the peninsula, when we have a flooding event, it is very obvious that Mother Nature wants her land back, that she brings it back to places that it was in the 17 and 1800s. We had lots of tributaries and creeks, that's the areas that flood. And so, as you point out, I mean, we're not going to stop water from moving. We just have to get it to move in directions that don't really impede our ability to live a quality life.
Yeah, you have to value the high ground you have,
right,
and you have to connect the low ground. And so as we start to build this, we gave in Dutch Dialogues here one of the better comprehensive ways to address this as a polder, but it was not just the perimeter, it was also the internal and how you move water so that you don't have to pump it always and induce the subsidence that we know. So there's an overall pattern here, but there's myriad details, right? Property ownership, connecting water, where you do these things. But water does take space.
Well, I think the good news is that we're addressing it. We're thinking about it. We're planning for it, and we're scalable, right? I mean, Charleston is scalable in terms of geographic size, but we're vulnerable. So the combinations of both the good news and the bad news. The good news, because we're scalable, we can attack those vulnerabilities and not be afraid of them.
Yeah, Charleston's sort of the Goldilocks perfect scale. As we looked at this work, and our friend Dale Morris, always said this is the perfect condition because it's the right scale.
Right.
It's also sensible, and as an architect, it's valuable.
And people out there listening to this, I mean, I think the messaging is, look, understanding that we've got some challenges, but that they are addressable is important, and get people behind, sort of rally behind the fact that Charleston is a place that is so, I mean, it's so important that we have to succeed, right? There's no other option.
I think the American tragedy is the lack of consensus. And I think you have to build this consensus. Water is a wonderful way to build consensus. The Dutch polder system is ultimately a political system.
Right.
And so how do you get people, as they say, get the noses in one direction? And they're competing interests, right? Because if you don't have all the money at one time, so how do you invest the money over time so that you can continue this process citywide?
I think one of the ways to build consensus, and it's a lesson from the Dutch, I think regardless of your outlook on life, I think all of us agree it's a much better day if you go through it with dry feet.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think keeping our feet dry is a political sort of statement that people can rally around, and just keeping water out of places where it shouldn't be.
Another thing about the Netherlands that I'm not here, I think I've shilled for the Dutch more than anyone in America, but it's generational.
Right.
It takes time to do this. If you're in the Netherlands, you notice the kids happily riding their bikes to school along the waterways, because you've got to invest, and you've got to think about not only the older and the middle generation, but the young, and where are they going to come up and live?
Well, and that brings up a really good point. I mean, as you're thinking about infrastructure, particularly when it comes to water, and you close your eyes and you think about things that you might be familiar with, like New Orleans, one of the things we've got to do is, as we design and build that infrastructure in Charleston in particular, that it has to be multi-purposed. It has to enhance your quality of life. If you can have perimeter protection that also allows you to get on your bike, ride, walk, have access to the waterfront you otherwise wouldn't have, that's success, right?
Yeah. Well, and Charleston's not perfect.
No.
So, I mean,
Well, we're pretty darn good.
You're good, but if you look at how difficult it is to get from South of Broad to the medical district, there's no particularly wonderful walking course, is there? Well, you can walk up in here and over and there, and at some point you're that's addressable through these ways.
That's right.
So you're trying to solve problems you already have, as well as address ones that you don't want to have.
Yeah, call them opportunities, right?
Well, they are. Yeah. And if you're going to spend the level of money that we're talking about here, you're talking about not just this generation's investment, but you're talking about an epical investment here.
Well, I think that the sort of the messaging from sitting here with you today for those listening is we are thinking about this. We are looking at it. You're here not just to sit here and talk to me across the table on a podcast, actually working on our water plan, working on our future, thinking about how we're going to actually manage our challenges with water. And it is, we've come a long way since we started Charleston Dutch Dialogues. And while we still have a long way to go, thankfully we've got the right team. I think we got the best team in the world right now looking at it.
Well, you get to be good because you learn by loss or by failure or seeing other things that weren't as good. I think the aspect of Charleston is that it's inviting and people like it. You know, we did a Dutch Dialogues around Houston at the same time, and it was much easier to get the Dutch, our cohort, which at this point has become really rarefied, to come to Charleston was to go to Houston.
Yeah, right. It's not, it's not hard to convince people to come to Charleston.
It's not hard. But that pressure on it also needs to be distributed, which is why it's not just the peninsula, even though the peninsula is primary. Anybody who is looking at revenue has to see that. But it's all of the place. And the natural aspect of Charleston, if you look at Charleston as a detached person, you see the beauty of the urban condition, but you also see the beauty of the natural condition. It is not either or this place or that place. You need the natural condition in the city center as well, which is, again, what this water course allows you to do. It allows you to renaturalize aspects of the thing in intentional ways.
Well, the good news is, I think there's a lot of it, but one of the things is that we're here, we're looking at it, we're thinking about it, we've brought the right people to the table. I think that we can build general consensus around the proposition that we have to address these challenges. And once you've gotten to that point, then you're really on a course to success. So it's really our good fortune here in Charleston that we've got David Waggonner Ball, the teams that are looking at this all over. Thank you so much for being part of what we're doing about helping us plan for the future and sort of integrating all the things that you've learned over time and overlaying them on our very valuable and important city. So we can't say thank you enough, but also recognizing there's a lot of work left to do together.
Yes, stay the course, right?
That's what we're going to do.
If you can chart the course and correct it as it goes and stay the course, you land somewhere.
That's right. Well, David, thank you so much for being part of Open Mic today. We'll get you back a lot, and we'll be wandering the streets of Charleston, looking at ways to make it a better place when the water's coming at us, and that's important work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Awesome.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for your leadership.